There's a household located a bit north from the Pokemon Center in Rustboro City. In this house lives the Pepper family. And on the first floor here is a dad and his newborn daughter. Let's see what he has to say. Oh, hello! Welcome to the Pepper household. I have a question for you. Have you ever babysat? You see, I'm a new father, so raising a child is all new to me. And I have a problem. My daughter Walda doesn't laugh enough. I think she'd laugh for me if I told her something funny. Do you know of a funny word or phrase you can tell me? Sure, let's give it a shot. I think I know of something funny to say. Ah, I see. Well, let's give it a try, shall we? Oh yes, she's laughing. Oh, I'm as delighted as she. Hey, that made her laugh. But why? To understand that, we first need to understand what we will get for this. For making her laugh, you get your very own custom-made wallpaper for your box. And depending on what wallpaper was designed, you can then generate a trainer ID specific secret code for this to make her laugh and obtain your wallpaper. These secret codes, however, don't really make a lot of sense if you don't know what it all means. Like who would ever think to say this to make her laugh? So let's dive a bit deeper to fully understand what goes into generating these codes. The first step in all of this is designing a wallpaper. Luckily there's a tool online to design it and then generate the code for it after, but I'm only really interested in the designing part at the moment. When designing, we can choose from a bunch of different patterns and icons to use in our design. Both these patterns and icons have their own set of indexes. In total there are 16 different patterns and 30 different icons to choose from. But unfortunately some of these are only available in the Japanese version. Besides icons and patterns, we can also select colors. We have a background color that is mostly used for the pattern, and we have a foreground color that is mostly used for the icons. The entire wallpaper is made of these 4 values. But to eventually generate the code to get this wallpaper, we also need a trainer ID. This will make the code unique for your game. And lastly, we need a random number ranging from 0 to 255, an unsigned 8-bit integer. The best way to refer to this value is as the key. This key will allow the game to decode this mess and give you the correct wallpaper. Now that we've designed the wallpaper and talked about all the parameters, we can start filling them in. We also know our own trainer ID, of course. And for the key, we can choose any value between 0 and 255. Keeping this value at 0 makes the algorithm easier, so let's not do that. Let's make it a random number. Now onto the algorithm. The first step is to prepare an array of 9 bytes long with the parameters we talked about earlier. We can already easily enter the icon, the pattern and the key. But the other values need some work. Let's take a look at the back and foreground colors. We have 16 bits available for each, but the value is 24 bits long. So we need to reduce it a bit. We do this by getting rid of the 3 least significant bits of each color. Afterwards we swap the red and blue part of it and then put it back together to make it fit in the 16-bit range. Once this is done for both the foreground and the background color, we can then put it into the array we previously had. Both of these values are placed in the array in a little endian way. This means that the least significant byte is placed first. Now we only have these 2 leftover spots in our array. Both of these values are based on the trainer ID. And to calculate them, we need all the previously mentioned parameters except for the key. For the first value, we need to exclusive OR the least significant byte of the back and foreground color, the icon, and the most significant byte of the trainer ID. And for the second value, we do the exact opposite, using the most significant byte of the back and foreground color, the pattern, and the least significant byte of the trainer ID. And the outcome of these values will be placed in our array respectively. Now at this point you might be thinking, what the heck is an exclusive OR? Let's take a look at this example. An exclusive OR operation will output a 1 if the number of high inputs is odd, and it will output a 0 if the number of high inputs is even. Now we are done preparing the array. The next step involves some encryption with the key. We will need to mask the entire array using the 4 most significant bits of the key. This is done by doing an exclusive OR with the created mask and the value that is in the array. But the key will remain untouched in this. By the way, remember before when I said that the algorithm would be easier if you keep the key at 0? This is because the values in the array will not change if you exclusive OR with only zeros. By keeping the key at 0, you could even skip the next step. Because for the next step, the bits in the array needs to be shifted to the right based on the value of the key. We need to look at the array as if they are circular connected to each other. This means that if we shift everything to the right, the last bit will loop back around and become the first bit. How many bits need to be shifted is calculated by the value of the key modulo 16. Modulo means what is left over after division, so in this case it's 5. So what we need to do is shift all bits in the circular array to the right 5 times. The next step involves the exact same action. All bits need to be shifted to the right 21 times, but this time the key is included in this. Let's take a look at how I coded this. I first made a loop to shift entire bytes using memmove, and afterwards have a separate loop for the remaining bits. Now we are done scrambling the array and we can finally make our secret code for the wallpaper we designed. Each 5 bits in our array creates a letter. This means that there are 32 different characters to choose from. It's a mix of uppercase and lowercase letters, and for some reason vowels are excluded. So creating a secret code that makes sense is almost impossible. But we'll talk more about this a bit later. Let's talk about the length of the code. The secret code itself is always 15 characters long. This creates a little problem, however, because the array is only 72 bits long and we need 75 bits to create 15 letters. To form the last letter, we need to loop back to the beginning and combine the last 2 leftover bits with the first 3 bits in the array. Here's a quick look at how I coded this. I made one loop for this, and the first thing that is done here is creating a letter and putting it in the buffer. Then it's calculated how many bits are left over on that index of the array, and lastly those unused bits are saved to use in the next iteration. Now we've gone through the entire algorithm and generated the code that we used at the beginning. When saying our funny phrase to the father and make his daughter laugh, we get our wallpaper. At this point you might think that we're done, but something is still bothering me. How is anyone ever able to figure out how to do this while normally playing the game? You're not able to even make a proper word with this, let alone saying something funny. There's gotta be more to this. So, I decided to do some research. I started looking towards the Japanese version of the game. The algorithm for this version is slightly different. The secret code here is only 12 characters long, because one letter takes 6 bits to form. Having only 12 characters that are 6 bits long means that it precisely fits in the 72 available bits from the array. Another thing to note is that we now have 64 characters to choose from. In here we have most of the hiragana characters, so you should definitely be able to make a word with this. That already solves most of my questions. But one question still remains. How are you able to figure out what words you need to fill in? To answer this, I decided to go back in time with the Wayback Machine, to see if there was any information on the Japanese Pokemon website. Maybe there was an event you could go to. Let's take a look here. Something about Groudon and Kyogre, Scott, the Battle Frontier, a Pikachu wallpaper, Trainer Hill. A Pikachu wallpaper? That's what we're looking for. I have no idea what this says, but when you click on it, it brings you to the login page of the Pokemon fan club. Apparently after you log in, you'll need to enter your trainer ID, and by doing that it will generate a word or a name to get you the Pikachu wallpaper. You could even use the key in this scenario to create a word that makes sense. So it looks like all mysteries are solved. But now I want that specific Pikachu wallpaper in my game. After analyzing the colors, I found the following values for the back and foreground colors. You might think that 248 is a weird number, but it actually makes a lot of sense. It is the max number when you can only use 5 bits. Remember in the beginning, we discarded the 3 least significant bits of the color to make it fit in the 16-bit range. Anyway, let's continue with the other values. The pattern index is 11 for Pikachu, and the icon doesn't have an influence in this wallpaper, so it can be any available index for the icon. And with all these parameters, we can generate some secret codes to get this Pikachu wallpaper in the English versions of the game. And with that, we've reached the end of this feature in Emerald. It's a shame you cannot make proper words with the English version, but it would be fun to try and recreate the Japanese algorithm sometime to search words that make sense. But for now, this is the end. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.